Hello and welcome to Policy and Politics. Now we begin with the part 2 of the episode where we discussed where is Samuel Huntington's theory on clash of civilizations correct, or is it rather a clash of faiths that we are seeing now? No, but in fact I was surprised to know recently researching for this episode, even in Pakistan it was Nawaz Sharif who used a bulldozer to himself run over a Hindu temple. Is it true?
It's a matter, I don't know, it could be apocryphal,
yeah.
But I certainly saw another video of a Hindu legislator openly saying that each time Pakistan has a problem with with India's, why are the Hindus of Pakistan targeted? Are we not equal citizens of Pakistan? हम क्या बराबर के शहरी नहीं हैं? Was the basic question that he was asking.
No, I want to ask you that if there is tomorrow more influx of immigrants from Bangladesh, will they be in a sense like the Europe is now responding to cultural invasion? Will the northeast of India respond to that? Or even the states which are to the south of India, say Andhra Pradesh, Hyderabad, Seema Andhra, all these places. How would you look at this?
So there are two aspects to this. One, Bangladesh compared to Pakistan may come across as a friendly state or a friendly country, so to speak. But history says otherwise, because what Pakistan has not been able to achieve through wars, I think certain vested interests in Bangladesh have managed to achieve through illegal immigration.
Okay.
And this is something that Lieutenant General S.K. Sinha in his report specifically pointed out, and there is a long recorded history, documented history, sufficient literature from people who have served in the intelligence apparatus and every other place, who have specifically said there is a specific strategy in place because of which this infiltration is going on. That there is an economic value to it, or there is, let's say, a climate reason for it, is a different issue altogether. Assume for a moment that Bangladesh truly wants India's help to handle its population and also to ensure that it has a safe haven when there is a climate change which results in a flood or whatever.
But does India have that responsibility as a state?
See, I don't think these are responsibilities which you take with choice. You happen to be a neighbor. If there is a problem in the other house and if water spills over there, it is bound to flood into your place, whether it's population or water.
Do other nations of the world have responsibility, or only
I would
India?
say that
does China have an equal responsibility?
Absolutely. I would say that every country in this neighborhood has the responsibility, which is why it's surprising that when it comes to the Rohingya crisis or anything else, people constantly look to India and they say, no, compared to the rest of the countries in that particular neighborhood, you're the only responsible democratic nation and therefore your responsibility is more. Does it mean that my existence as a democracy has become a liability wherein I am answerable to everybody under the sun and I become the whipping boy for everybody under the sun? I don't think that should be the case at all.
But so, I want a specific answer from you. There were speeches made by a certain political party on the CA issue. They say when you go to the American consulate for a visa, they will see whether you have a certain qualification. They don't want lumpens and people in low social. They only want people who will add to the value of a nation.
Absolutely.
So does India have a responsibility of taking all people who will not add to value of this great country?
I will say this bluntly. India is not a dharamshala, and no nation state can ever be treated as a dharamshala.
Of that anybody can come.
Not
because
at
in
all.
The end they'll eat on the jobs of the locals, of people who are, and anyways we have too many.
Any country which has a revolving door policy when it comes to its borders might as well dissolve its borders. And anybody who advocates for a revolving door policy is effectively advocating for, let's say it's detrimental to India's interest. See, people like us, or anybody sitting in an air-conditioned studio or an air-conditioned apartment, or let's say living in the hip localities of Delhi or anywhere else, they are not the ones to bear the brunt of illegal migration.
Because they don't live in their neighborhood.
The illegal migration affects the jobs of the people, let's say in the lower middle class society or the middle class society, the daily wage laborers. Okay?
So they are the hardest hit.
They are the hardest hit. So any kind of pontification with respect to illegal migration, saying that this is xenophobia and whatnot, according to me, is elitism of the worst possible kind. And we must desist from it. You are not in a position to put yourself in the shoes of a person who is directly affected by illegal immigration. Therefore, you must not speak for them. You are not in a position to do so. And to use the constitution to do that, according to me, is harakiri.
Okay. So going ahead and coming back again, the issue of CAA. Where is this going? In your view, will it mean that all these people, now if it is an established fact that these people can't be sent back, or it will be difficult, then what measures can the state take to ensure that they are living, but they also, in a sense, how will they accommodate it? I mean, in your view, legally, how can that be done?
So I suspect your question is not in the context of the CA, but more in the context of a potential NRC and
potential NRC, which will
Right.
Inevitably
it is
follow.
inevitable. I think it's inevitable and it's necessary. It's a must. Yes, yes. So There are two solutions at least which have been posited by the 175th Law Commission report, and which were, I think, also hinted by General S.K. Sinha as part of his report.
Yes.
Wherein he says that these people must not get voting rights, people who are illegal migrants, and two, they must not have the ability to purchase immovable property. Two reasons why. Participation in political life, if you are an illegal migrant, effectively gives you a handle, and if you are in larger numbers, somebody has, let's say, a vested interest in cultivating you. Two, real estate and geography translates to visibility, translates to demographic presence, translates to power, translates to influence. No matter what you do, the importance of land and real estate and resources cannot be wished away when it comes to public life and political life. Which is why limitations and fetters on these two specific rights have already been envisaged. So the manner in which the detention centers have been portrayed is perhaps mixed. Of course, perhaps conditions could be better, people could be treated better, they could be given better conditions, they could be given access to health and whatnot. However, to expect them to be treated at par with citizens, I'm sorry to say, is perhaps not constitutionally permissible. And two, if anybody believes that the concept of a detention center at the outset is unconstitutional, this has been proposed by the Supreme Court long ago when the concept of the NRC in the context of Assam was discussed. How come nobody challenged this concept? How come nobody challenged this concept and its constitutionality all these years? Now when they see it in action, they're saying, how can this happen? This is a judicially sanctioned, judicially overseen, judicially facilitated move. Okay? So according to me, one, the conflation between CAA and NRC is not entirely correct. Two, NRC is important, NPR is important, notwithstanding the economic costs.
Now coming back to our topic of clash of faiths.
Right.
Two specific anecdotes.
Right.
I saw this Pakistani TV debate, and they say that the West and now the Islamic kingdoms have been clashing specifically for two reasons.
Right.
It's mostly liberal democracies of the West.
Right, right.
They see a huge influx of population from the Middle East.
Right, right.
They go there, they marry local women, they buy property, they settle down, and then they want change of laws.
Right.
So, and this debate, and I made a note of it, said that you go there and then you want to change their culture, and that's why they don't like it.
Right,
right. But the reverse is not allowed.
Right. Correct.
When these very Americans come to Saudi, they are not allowed citizenship.
Right, right, right.
So do you think that this gives rise to a certain kind of clash of faith? That, we allow you, you don't allow us.
Right.
Or anyways, or we don't come. Do you think this is the clash?
I would believe that is the global manifestation of the Owaisi mindset. I would bluntly put it. Wherein it is the weaponized use of the constitution, weaponized use of the minority identity, and the convenient use of patriotism, which is effectively in full display. Okay, this is happening at a global level. So let me put this question bluntly. The name of the party itself has a specific religious connotation, AIMIM. Second, in the constituencies where they contest, where the party contests, how many leaders from the Hindu faith are actually projected, and how many of them win from those localities where Hindus are in the minority? That is a question which Mr. Owaisi has to answer before he holds forth on constitutionalism, before he holds forth on secularism and whatnot. Coming to this particular issue, I think every country has the right to ask itself, when you enter, you're no more entering as an individual, now you're entering as a group or a community. So if you look at the scholarly literature that is available when it comes to global migration patterns, perhaps in early history, groups were moving from one place to another in search of greener pastures, literally. Okay? But once the concept of civilization came forth, any kind of migration was individual in nature. So for instance, if there was a phase and there continues to be a phase where talented people from India want to go to America, but they don't think as groups, they go as individuals. What has happened perhaps in the last decade is that there is a sudden group migration, collective migration, and a communal migration, okay, which automatically raises concerns. First concern is what? One, is that going to change the society which I have lived in? Okay. Second, will they be in a position to assimilate themselves in the society that they're coming to? But because, if I may, I'll just make this point. Every concept of naturalization is nothing but a process of assimilation of the migrant into the native community. Whether you like it or not, it is a process of being eased into the culture that you have chosen to go to. So to go there and impose your rights, or let's say, you can ask for your rights, but to impose your ways on the rest of the society is to ask the native to dance to the tunes of the migrant, which I don't think is ever permissible.
No, but then I would also argue,
right,
a lot of people from the Indic faith,
Right.
predominantly Hindus or Buddhists,
Right.
they also go to all Western countries and settle down.
Correct.
But there is no backlash against them.
Correct.
How would you look at that? Or is it only the Christians and the Muslims who will fight? But there is, on the face of it, I see no news on that front.
See, because I think that's a question that needs a larger theological, anthropological,
because the
and
Hindu
social
community is a
discussion.
large community in America.
Of course.
But there is no such backlash.
Correct,
In fact,
correct.
they are liked and loved and feted.
It's not just Indic communities. When Chinese go there as well, you don't see instances of clashes.
No, there is no clash for the Chinese who go to America.
Japanese go there,
Yes.
Thais go there, but that doesn't happen.
But why is that so?
I don't know. Perhaps it needs a deeper exploration of the mindset that one carries when they go to a foreign land. See, when you make a conscious choice of going to somebody else's country, whatever your reasons may be, it is a choice that you have exercised. And you're asking that particular system to change itself according to one particular individual, okay, which I think is unfair. Two, I think when Indians, or let's say Indic communities, members of Indic communities go, they don't go there as groups, they go there as individuals. They're going there looking for a better life as an individual. Beyond that, I don't think they have any aspirations of imposing their values and their ways of life on the native in America.
Even though they have their places of worship, places of festival celebration and all that, even then,
because one, you have to appreciate the fact that that particular host society is not antithetical to your way of life. It allows you to celebrate your festivals,
Yes,
it does all of that. So credit must be given to that particular society. At the same time, the fact that you don't come from, let's say, a missionary faith,
Yes.
or a faith that does not believe in imposing itself on others,
Yes.
okay, could play a significant role in the actions of an individual who believes that if I don't subscribe to a faith that effectively believes in imposing itself on anybody else, why should I actually do that? And as long as my right to follow my faith is respected and there is no fetter, or at least there is no unreasonable fetter put on that particular issue, I have no problems. I can coexist with others. So I think coexistence is something that comes naturally to members of Indic communities.
Okay, so if we speak of CA and fear mongering,
Right.
do you feel that the majority community in India has fell victim to fear mongering on this issue? Or do you think they are rightly feeling whatever they are feeling that it is right in this case?
Right.
Or do you feel that there is a certain element of fear mongering because in a sense Hindus are still about 80-82% of this country?
I don't know that until I see the latest census.
Okay, okay. In fact, I saw a joke, in fact, again Mr. Hassan Nisar said that he accused Indians of lowering the numbers of Muslims who stay in the country. They say India wale jhoot bolte hain. The numbers are much more, Indians lie. I mean, the Indian government lies. He was accusing the Indian government in that case.
So which is why I said that Mr. Hassan Nisar, notwithstanding his airs of being an intellectual, is a Pakistani intellectual at the end of the day.
Yes.
Okay, that's something that cannot be done away with.
Yeah.
Two, see, there are three aspects or three baskets in which perhaps you can split and slot the reactions to the CAA. One is people who have understood what the CAA is for, but they genuinely believe that it is against the Constitution. That is a fair point of view.
Genuine constitutionalists,
They could
which are
believe that it
judges
is
and
against-
members of the judiciary who
Of course,
believe that this
or
should-
even lay persons could believe that. So that is a valid and a legitimate position to take to the extent that people have the right to take that position. But I don't agree with it is a different question. The second basket are people who are deliberately trying to create a certain fear mongering, and perhaps they have smelt an opportunity in this particular issue to revive their political fortunes which have been sagging for 6
you mean
years.
it's political money which is fueling this rather
From
than
inside and outside the country. That
outside the country?
I would certainly say so. News reports and the manner of coordination between Al Jazeera and let's say local players, so to speak, is astounding. It's like
You mean
clock of
international
precision.
news against India suddenly in all papers is also...
Absolutely. See, I don't think we can live in a world anymore, or we can believe in a world anymore which says that it's all innocent. No, it's not.
So which means there is an international media nexus to bring pressure on the Prime Minister himself or the government himself by giving news which is anti-India?
I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but thanks to Mr. George Soros,
Yes.
I think certain things have come out in the open. And when he has clearly said that he has committed certain funds, or he wishes to commit a significant portion of his fortune to changing the nationalist narrative in certain countries, you can expect certain entities and certain individuals to dance to those tunes, particularly when there is so much of money at play.
Okay, okay.
And then there is the third element of the third basket, which is completely driven by hatred, blind ignorance, and an inability or let's say a complete reluctance to at least read the black letter of the law before they form an opinion. They just do not accept it.
Do you feel a large portion of the minority community in the country has been misguided on the CA? Because they are not affected by it but are protesting. Many people are genuinely protesting. Do you think there is unknown fear?
No. In fact, to say that a significant cross-section of the minority has bought into this fear-mongering would be wrong.
You mean
because
it's
in
only
my private discussions, so at least in the discussions that I've had with practicing Muslims who are educated people who are also lawyers, frankly, they're still trying to understand why are people hell-bent on whipping up passions like this.
So basically, these protests are in some 2-3 cities, in 2-3 areas. The protests are not all encompassing in villages and everywhere, nowhere.
It is happening at a fairly larger scale than we would have previously expected.
Okay.
As people who are looking at what's going on. But at the same time, I think the media attention has gone disproportionately to only those voices which are against the CAA. And the media has not given equal voice to people who support the CAA and ask them, why do you support it if you believe that it is against one particular community?
So now when a political party has huge speeches on demographic change and its effects on India, do you feel these statements are in a sense fear-mongering, or India seriously faces a threat of demographic change?
Right. For a moment, assume for a moment that that statement had not come from a political party and an intellectual with an understanding of, let's say, how societies function and how demographics matters had made that particular statement. Would we be more receptive to that particular position? If yes, then there are any number of scholars and intellectuals who have taken the particular position. The fact that it is being ventilated through the mouth of a political party or through the mouthpiece of a certain party does not take away from the validity of the particular position. Okay? The position must be judged on its own 2 feet, on its own merits, regardless of who is saying it. Okay? The dramatist personage should not make a difference to the validity of the proposition. And that's where I believe that fundamentally we are focusing on individuals as opposed to issues. Okay? We must perhaps come to the issue as opposed to focusing on who is saying what.
Okay.
There
but would you agree?
I certainly believe it makes a difference. So if Northeast has legitimate concerns with respect to demographics, and Kashmir can have legitimate concerns, and Kerala can have legitimate concerns, Tripura can have legitimate concerns, why not the rest of the country? So demographic concerns and the validity of those concerns are not the sole preserve of a particular state or a particular community. Everybody is entitled.
I would like to now come and like for you to address at least one question on distorted history of India.
Right.
Do you feel that the Indian intelligentsia so far has in a sense not paid attention to what kind of history we are teaching our children? Also, case in point, and some intellectual put this theory that if 2 communities staying next door don't have the same history or don't look at history in the same way, then they can't exist as a nation. For example, if
Ambedkar said this.
So Ambedkar said this.
Yes.
Somebody shared it with me. He said,
Pakistan and partition of India, this is his exact definition of a nation, which is, if nation specifically means a conglomeration of people with shared identity of the past and a shared vision of the future and a clear picture as to where they stand in the present. So if the heroes of, let's say, a certain nation are not the same, and forget being different, if they're antithetical, they are at loggerheads with each other, then clearly they are 2 different nations within the same nation. That is exactly
so you mean that's why India, in a sense, is going to face this problem for the coming decades again and again. Simply because a political party in CA said that when there was thing that why don't you accept minorities from Pakistan under CA, they said these people chose to go to Pakistan.
And why they wanted Pakistan.
And India had to give away its land.
Correct.
So, if they want to come, they might as well come back with the land, he laughed and said.
Correct.
That, hello, this can't be allowed.
Correct.
So it's a simple argument.
Correct.
But the layman will understand it. That when you chose to leave this land, you went away with a chunk of the land.
Correct.
But now you again want to come back. And in fact, they voted for the Muslim League, and that's how it happened.
Until 46, the position was very clear. See, if the 2-nation theory has become irrelevant, then why are there 2 nations? Why don't they merge again? It's not as if East Germany and West Germany, they merged.
Yes.
They came back together, right? So if according to you this is comparable.
So basically the majority in India has genuine concerns about allowing minorities from either Pakistan or Bangladesh, and these are genuine concerns.
So which is where I think your point on history becomes relevant, that so far I don't think we have undertaken an honest examination of history, regardless of the sentiment it hurts.
No, but this government also, sorry to speak, it's been the 6th year.
It's been pathetic when it comes to history.
But
I won't even beat around the bush
the national education policy is still nowhere.
It's horrible. See, the national education policy, and I happen to go through it, and as part of, let's say, certain initiatives, we even sent our comments.
So I had somebody who went to the University of Oxford, who spoke to me about Shushruth, who was a plastic surgeon. But you have to go to Oxford University to read Shushruth is in a way a telling comment on the way we teach history.
But there are two perspectives to it. Assume for a moment that you were to incorporate Sushruta as part of, let's say, India's curriculum, and you try to mainstream it in history books and whatnot. You'll immediately have a significant cross-section of the media calling it Bhagwakaran, saffronization.
But how is it that it's a fact? History is a fact.
That is
how is it related to any rightist or leftist? History is history.
That's the problem. The thing is, the dominant narrative has pit itself against the native history, the native sense of identity.
In fact, I talk about my example. I learned about Raja Chola watching National Geographic documentaries. It was not in my school textbooks. Isn't that the tragedy of Garangutan proportions?
It's
that
a travesty of
students
justice.
Who well into their middle age will watch a documentary put out by the National Geographic to talk about the architectural marvels. And those temples are not talked about. They say I mean, you can't even understand. Even today you can't build such temples. How these guys would have built such temples in the rain, I think about 2000 years ago.
Correct.
And my last question to be that should all history teaching start from say 1 AD?
Not at all.
Or if India is indeed a civilization as it is about 3000, 4000, 5000 or more old, at least till we have historical proofs. Should history include those eras also?
The CAA is about history. It is about, the debate is entirely about history. So it reinforces my fundamental position that no matter what you do, the value of history cannot be overstated and history will continue to be relevant. Therefore, we must rid ourselves of Marxist distortions which Indian history has been subjected to grotesquely. And I say this bluntly after having read a significant portion of it. And we must rid ourselves of, let's say, the baggage of the colonial prism when we look at our own practices and our own history. Every time we speak of Indian history, it doesn't go beyond caste or sati or whatever it is, without even understanding the origins, the scale of prevalence, and how much was it prevalent. And I don't wish to be an apologist for any abominable practice. I don't wish to say that at all. However, when we make sweeping generalizations about Indian history, how much do we actually know of its history? What primary sources have you read? So here's the question. Indian history is now read in English, which is not the language in which it is supposed to be read. It is a secondary proposition. It is a secondary language. It is a translation. How many of us are capable of reading the primary sources in the primary language? So language and history are integrally connected to identity culture. So as long as you don't address the language policy, you don't address the history policy, you will continue to suffer.
And before we end, do we have any Indic school of jurisprudence so far after about 60, 70 years of independence?
No, we don't. So paragraph, I think 16.7 of the National Education Policy, the draft policy, which was authored by the CNR Rao Committee, the Kasturi Rangan Committee, unfortunately has limited the discussion on legal jurisprudence and legal education to one paragraph without even touching on Indic jurisprudence, an Indic school of legal philosophy, of which there is an abundance. If you're a civilization of at least 6,000 years, could we have survived without a legal structure in place?
Obviously.
So there is no discussion at all. I would certainly believe that mainstreaming of Hindu legal thought or Indic legal thought would lead to more awareness of who we are as a people and what kind of values of truth and justice we subscribe to.
Okay. Sai, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We will take forward this series because a lot of questions are yet unfinished. But I would like to thank you for sparing your time on this issue of policy and politics. And viewers, we'll come back with another episode of Policy and Politics, taking this very discussion forward. But thank you for now for joining us on this episode of Policy and Politics. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.